Hello, everyone. Welcome to Dear Hallmark. I am Dara, and you have just entered the space where we talk about Hallmark Channel movies and stuff. And I normally talk about them by myself, but as you can see, or as you can hear, I am not by myself today. We are joined with a costume designer, Jaralin Detienne. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did, yeah. Good for you.
Awesome.
That's a tricky one.
Thank you so much for being here, Jaralyn. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing good. Yeah, I'm in the middle of, well, actually, we're in our last week of shooting of one. I can't tell you what, but we're
Oh,
doing yet another one. I was just trying to think and count up. I think I've done about 45 movies for the network in the last 7 years, so it's a lot.
wild. Wild. So, can you,
Yeah.
before we get into the meat and potatoes of our discussion, I want to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. So, what would you say is a really, really good dish that you've had recently that when you just think about it, like your mouth waters?
Mm. Okay. Well, I oh, so many things. I was recently in Colombia
Oh,
and they had all the fresh fish. So one of the little places that we stayed on the beach, it was amazing because you'd come down in the morning and they'd be bringing the boats in with the fresh catch, and they would lay out like four different types of fish, and then you're like, which one do you want? And you're like, I want that one.
yes.
So I think that's the top of my list right now for like favorite meals that I've had recently.
That's my
Just
mouth is watering just hearing you talk
yeah.
about that. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. So, can you tell the people a little bit about who you are, your background, where you come from?
Sure, yeah. So I was born in just outside of Toronto, Ontario in Canada, and lived there until I think it was like grade six. And then as a family, we moved to Nova Scotia, which is like far east. And I did junior high and high school in Nova Scotia and went back to Ontario to start my degree, and then eventually moved all the way out west to Vancouver. And I've lived in Vancouver since 2001. I love Vancouver because it's kind of like the perfect in between of the city life of Toronto and the beauty in Nova Scotia.
Wow.
Um, Vancouver, it's gorgeous here. It's amazing because on some days in the year you can go an hour and a half and ski, and then you can come back down to the city and go golfing or boating, and we just yeah, it's amazing here. So
Yeah,
that's
people
kind of
cannot
my
say enough
people
good
cannot say go.
things, enough good things about Vancouver. I've put that on my list of places to visit for sure. So, I
Yeah.
definitely have to make it out there and see what all the hullabaloo is about because that sounds amazing. So you are a costume designer, as I mentioned in the beginning. So where did your love of fashion begin? Did it begin in your early years, or was it more so something you discovered as you got older?
So I am the oldest of five girls, and my mom, it really stemmed from my mom and my great grandmother. I remember my great
Wow.
grandmother, she always wore a pencil skirt and a beautiful blouse. She had to have
Mm,
all of her blouses made for her because she was rather busty. And
wow.
she always liked peep toe shoes, and it was like all the wigs and all of the jewelry. And she always looked like just perfection, right? Like classic pinup.
Yeah.
So we grew up with that. And then my mom was really the same way. She could put together an outfit and because there were so many of us kids, she did make a lot of our clothes for us. And then as well, she would just find things on sale and somehow like make it look like $1 million, right? It's like a
Mm,
$5 dress, and you add
mhm,
the necklace and everyone would be like, wow, you look amazing.
mhm.
It's the power of accessories. I learned it at a very young age.
Yeah.
Um, and then having all of us girls in the house, we had to share whether you liked it or not. Um, I'm still going to therapy over some of that. No, I'm just joking. It's like, why does she get to wear my shirt and stretch it out and get food on it, and the whole thing you do with siblings. So
Right, right. I have one
um,
myself, so I know what that means. Yep.
right? It's like obviously you want to share, but you're like, don't ruin my stuff.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So we just grew up with lots of clothes, and like I said, my mom, she would just buy things, and I just started watching how she paired everything together, and then I started doing it myself. So
Mm.
my degree, actually, I started in vocal performance and music theater. So
Wow.
I I learned costuming from the theater side of things. And um, for many years, I was a professional singer. So I spent about 10 years or a little bit more on the road, traveling all over the world, which
Wow.
also gives you a lot of ideas. Really, what I do all day long, wherever I am, if I'm in Colombia or if I'm in Greece or if I'm in Vancouver or if I'm in the States, is I watch people. I'm constantly doing a character study. And it's like I have these big eyes, and I have to remember like to not stare, because I'm staring out of a place of like, oh, that's so interesting. I wouldn't have maybe picked that shirt and I create these characters in my mind, and then it's like, Jer, you're staring. It's like, oh yeah, sorry. But singing all over the world as a musician, you're I really started doing and creating looks for our bands, like for cohesiveness. Um, you're looking at colors, like what colors pick up on stage, what colors don't, especially when you're watching back video.
Yeah.
Um, and and then also being in different cultures and being in different parts of the world, you're watching what people wear, which makes things really fun now for me, because even when I was in Colombia, I wasn't there to do a movie, but I'm like, oh, note, this is where I can get these type of shoes if I ever need them. Now I know where to order them from. It's
Mm.
like, oh, watch what this person is wearing, this street vendor. Like, you just start paying attention to those kind of things. So, yeah, so I started in music. I had a vocal injury. And when I had a vocal injury, actually a Hallmark sweetheart, Donna Benedicto, Donna and I she was singing a little bit around town. And I said, Donna, why don't you come in and fill in for me until I'm feeling better? And Donna was like, okay. So she filled in and did my house gig here in the city. And I think it was like 2 or 3 months in, I still wasn't singing. She's like, Jer, why don't you come with me to acting class? She's like, you used to do theater. Why don't you come to acting class with me? And I was like, Donna, I don't want to be an actor. And she's like, no, just come as the creative outlet. Like, just come, like, just sit in class, be creative. Like, you need to be creative. And I was like, okay. So
Wow.
I went and started acting classes, like on camera classes, right? Which was different than my theater background. Same, but different, right?
Yeah.
And really was enjoying just the creative process. And my acting coach was like, okay, it's time for you to get an agent. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. And she's like, Jaralin, get an agent. So, kicking and screaming, 6 months later, I got an agent, and started to work, do some of these indie films. And when you do indie films, or even like if you're a lower part for like a smaller production, they'll often ask you to bring clothes.
Okay.
Like, here's a character you're playing. Would you be willing to bring some options for it? Because again, they're low budget. They don't always have the things that you might have.
Hmm.
And then you kind of want to bring your own stuff if you have good stuff in those kind of situations, because otherwise you're at the mercy of whatever they put you in based on their budget.
Right.
So I brought a bunch of clothes to this one indie movie. And actually, Donna and I both landed like a similar role in the movie. We showed up together for costuming. And the the designer, she was like, I love the clothes you brought. And Donna's like, oh, it's because Jaralin styles people. And she's like, oh, have you ever done it for film? And I was like, no. And she's like, well, would you want to? And I was like, sure. And at this point, I haven't worked for a long time because I had my vocal injury,
Right.
and I was at the place where I was like, just being like, okay, I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes to things and see
Mhm.
what lands.
Mhm.
And whatever is of the highest and greatest good for me is going to land. And that was kind of my prayer and what I was asking for. So, so she's like, can I take your number? I was like, sure. And it's one of those situations where you're like, yeah, you're never going to call me, and that's fine.
Right.
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 You go
Right.
through this in your head.
Right.
And she called me like 2 days later and she said, I'm working for this Hallmark show with this other designer. Would you want to come in and buy for us? And I was like, okay. And so I literally went in and I started shopping, and over the course of actually not that long, I worked my way up in the system. I did almost all of the jobs in the costume department, and I was on set. So I was being the on-set dresser, and I was working with Lori Loughlin, and
Wow.
it was a garage sale mystery. And Lori and I had a really great rapport, and she asked me to come on to be her personal dresser. And at that point, I had been offered a job as an assistant designer. And I was like, Laura, I just got offered an assistant designer. I would love to just stay with you and be your on-set, but I need to take this opportunity. She's like, absolutely, you do. She's like, take it. So I assisted in 2 shows. And then I got a call from a production manager, and he was like, I am doing this movie. We really need a strong shopper. Would you be able to come in and shop? And I said, absolutely, but I'm working on another show, so I can give you the weekend. And if that will be helpful to you, I will come in and I will work the weekend for you, which I did. And then he's like, what are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm assisting. I was like, why? He's like, well, I got a movie and I need a designer. And I was like, okay, then why don't you, the girl that I was working with at the time, I was like, why don't you hire us to come in? And, um, we were both still new into this, and Hallmark, when you work for them, um, they do look at your resume. Like, you have to be accepted by them in order to get into to design for them. And, he's like, well, you know what? It's with Lori Loughlin. And so Lori's like, absolutely. And Lori was one that pushed for me, and the reason why I was able to get in and to start designing. And so
Wow.
then I designed, I think 2.5 years of her, of Garage Sale Mystery, which I loved that series. The cast on that, like, they were so amazing. And it was such
Yeah.
a wonderful. And so then that would be my first half of every year. I would do 4 shows in a row. And then whatever other movies came around. So that's a
Wow.
long version of how I got into designing.
Thank you for
Because
sharing that.
yeah, because you can have like mine is in, like I said, theater, which you can have a degree in whatever, but it's always about connections and people, and people seeing and knowing your passion. And yeah, I love to make people I love to create a character and have people be like, yes, this feels like her. This feels like him. Then all they have to do is act. It's like
Mm.
the clothes are like this beautiful addition. And then they don't have to fuss with them because they're like, yep, this feels like her. And now I can embody that character in a different way. So yeah.
That's such a beautiful way to look at it. Could you break down for us, because you mentioned how you did all of the different jobs within the costume department. Could you let us know, like, what are all the ways you can work your way up, or the different jobs that you can have within the costume department on a set?
Yeah. So there's um there's shoppers. So how it works for me is when I get a script, I break down the script. I usually do mood boards and present them to the director, the producer, and then as well the network, to make sure everyone's happy with where I see the direction of the characters going.
Mhm.
Um, and then at that point, usually my assistant will come in and she'll come on. So I'll usually spend the first couple of days in prep by myself, and then I'll have my assistant who will come on. And at that point, we'll usually start to shop, or if we're researching certain things, then she'll help me with that. Once we get to the stage where we get cast, then I will bring in my buyers, because I can't, if we have anywhere from 18 to 30 cast,
Mm,
and depending on how late we get them in our prep, I can't shop everybody by myself.
sure.
So
Right.
then I will say to my shoppers, here is the character, here's their mood board. This is what I want. I'm like, I want you to shop at these stores, see what you can find. I want this type of pant on them. I want this kind of shirt, and I want these options. Like, and then I let them out and I let them go. And I like my shoppers to be creative as well. So if they see something out there and if something inspires them, I'm always excited for that. It's a team effort, and I really trust them. My team, most of my team has been with me for 5 or 6 years now. So we really have it like, I'm the luckiest. I'm the luckiest because they know me, they know my aesthetic, and then I actually get to do what I do really well, which is like put the looks together and style them. So so the shoppers will go out, I will go out, and I usually shop for all the leads. That's usually what I do, and then I'll have the girls fill in missing pieces.
Mhm.
Um, and then I will sometimes, depending on how big the show is, I'll also have a coordinator. The coordinator is similar to the assistant, but will do things like help with accounting, setting up fittings, staffing. Like if I'm like, I need you to book background costumers, whatever, then the coordinator would do that kind of a thing. So
Okay.
depending, like I said, on budget and how big, then you would have a coordinator. And then once we get closer to loading in the truck, we have a huge wardrobe truck, and we have load in. So if we start shooting on the Monday, the load in is the Friday before. It takes like a half a day to load in what is called my kit. And
Mm,
my kit is stock of clothes for background. It is all the wardrobe for the cast.
mhm,
It is socks and underwear and bras and jewelry flats and belts and rain boots and cozy coats and
mm.
under layers. Like, it's all the things. My kit fills more than a 10 by 10 storage. So just to give you an idea,
Wow.
we're
Yeah.
loading in all of this stuff so that we have everything we need on there. So then at that point, my truck costumer will come in because she oversees the truck.
Okay.
Um, as well, my on-set. So whoever's going to be my set supervisor, which she's in charge of. So it kind of works how it starts at the truck. The truck costumer will set the looks in the trailers, and then the cast go to set, and then my on-set is responsible to make sure that the continuity stays. Like, oh, did you take that purse off? Did you take your shoes off? Okay, here's your shoes. Sometimes we're like hurting children,
Yeah.
right? These
Yeah.
actors. It's like, where did you put your blazer? Oh, I don't know. I don't know where I left it. So it's like, the onset has the job of like, dang, you were just in that shot, and where did you put your hat? Like, you're supposed to have your hat on. And it's like, yeah. So then that's my onset. Depending on the show size, sometimes she will have an assist. Um, an onset assist. And then as well, I will have somebody for background. So if we have background actors coming in, then I will have like a background coordinator, depending on how many background I have in that day. Sometimes that coordinator will have helpers, like depending on the amount of people.
Yeah.
Also, if I've had it as well, that I've had a truck assist, depending on how many cast are in for the day. So really it's like how many cast, and then what's my budget and what can I afford to staff. But
Yeah.
those are kind of like my main crew. So on a given movie, I will have anywhere from 6 to 14 people working for me,
Wow.
depending.
So
Mhm.
what is the costume designer's relationship, and you can speak personally too, with hair and makeup, and how does that look like from, or what does that relationship look like from film to film? Like, would a costume designer like yourself have like a go-to hair and makeup person, or is that hired separately and then you
Mm.
guys have to kind of work together and build the vision of the character?
Yeah, the so I've worked, especially when I did the garage sale mysteries with Lori, the hair, makeup, and wardrobe team were always the same, which
Okay.
is the dream. It's the dream
Okay.
because then really I would be in touch with them and I'd be like, here's what I'm thinking for Sarah Strange this year. This is I want to progress her character to this. What do you think? And then they'd be like, oh yeah, okay, we've been chatting with her. She's gonna cut her hair. So then we'll do it like this. We'll add this kind of makeup, like, and so then we're really able to create like this cohesive character, which
Yeah.
is, like I said, the dream. And then when you work with people enough, like um like on that show, actually that hair and makeup team we're working with right now on the one that I'm currently
Oh,
on,
that's
it's
awesome.
it is the absolute best because we know each other's aesthetic.
Yeah.
And it was like the other day we had a wedding, surprise on this movie, and they pop onto the truck and they're like, okay, what do you have her in? Maybe we should add some hair accessories. And I'm like, yeah. And so then we sit there together and we're like, okay, let's do this. You don't always get that on
Mm,
every movie.
mm.
Um, y- you don't. And same with the all of the wedding veils. For the most part, there was like just two teams. So we were really able to work together, which is so fun. And it makes it like we have like
Yeah,
long days, anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. And you really, really want to spend your days working with people you love. And
yeah,
we're really, really fortunate, especially on these Hallmark movies. There's not very many times like I can count them on, less than a hand where we're not like, yeah, this is great. Like we love the people we're working with. Obviously, though, there's some people that you gel with more. So,
sure,
uh,
sure, sure.
yeah. So every production, like every movie, the hair and makeup wardrobe, they're all being hired by the production manager.
Okay,
So, y- yeah, it's just then having conversation with them. But like I said, once you've worked with some of them, some of the teams a lot longer, then it makes it even more magical because you figure each other out, each other's aesthetic. So,
yeah. So what would a typical day look like for you as the costume designer, as the one who's kind of the head of the ship there?
mm. So when we're in prep, so we usually do 3 weeks of prep and about 3 weeks of shoot. Sometimes it's almost 4 weeks of shoot, depending on the movie. Um, when we're in prep, I would be shopping, giving
Okay,
direction, obviously, to my buyers. So in the malls, and then I do a lot of fittings. I do all the fittings,
okay,
and then it's really setting looks once you get approvals back from the network. So I will take photos of the outfits and then I will send them to the network for approval, and the network gives me approval. And then from there, I go through my breakdown and I'm like, where is this? Where are they?
mm,
What does the location look like? What are the colors in the location? Sometimes I know this ahead of time and sometimes I don't.
hmm,
Because sometimes it takes a while for them to get the locations, but then okay, do they need a coat with this outfit? Do I have a coat that's going to work for this outfit? And then usually try to set number one's looks first and then base everything else around him or
mm,
her.
hmm,
And then I do number two. So, and then all the supporting. But yeah, it's like, what is the location? What makes sense? Are they going to be hiking? Are they going to be in the woods? Are they,
mm,
what is the weather going to be like? What am I trying to cheat as well? Like, oh, it's springtime. Yeah, but it's like it could snow here in Vancouver. Okay, what can I put them in that looks spring, but I can put a base layer underneath, like, so
hmm.
they're not freezing and like annoyed with my onset, being like, we're we're so cold. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
so there's
yeah.
all these factors that you have to think about, right? So that's when I'm in prep. Once we start shooting, um, I love to be on set. There's some designers that don't like to be on set, but if you look up the dictionary definition of a costume designer, I'm pretty sure it says that the costume designer sets the looks. So, which means on the morning, as we're putting the clothes, as my truck costumer is putting the clothes into the trailers, I am going around once they're dressed and being like, okay, what are the final little pieces? Maybe
Mm,
that belt's not exactly right. What shoes are we going to wear? What coat is she going to wear? What jewelry is she going to wear? And I'm there to make sure that we come and we do the rehearsal on camera, how does it look? Like, you see the shot.
mhm,
Okay, this is exactly what I wanted. Or I think we should switch that blazer.
mm,
And then you tweak whatever needs to be tweaking, and then it's set. And so once it's set, it's continuity. So then at that point, it's the role of my girls to make sure that that continuity stays. And really, then I don't need to really be back and see that look if I need to do other things like do help with returns or start my petty cash or whatever. I don't need
mm,
to be there
mhm.
for that look because that look is already set and it's established, it's shot. And yeah, so that would be what happens. And once we get, then it gives me the freedom to run around and be like, she needs a different pair of shoes for this outfit that's going to play in 2 days. And I'm going to run out and sneak out and get it. Or I really want a different earring or whatever. Yeah, all the little details then.
Wow, yes, that's what I was gonna say. There's so much little detail that we don't even think about as viewers. We just see the final look and like we'll notice like a hat, or at least I did for example, Wedding Veil Inspiration. Autumn's hats. Stellar. Love them. Speaking of which, I wanted to name a few of the movies that you've worked on that people may not be aware of that you are responsible for costuming. So you mentioned Garage Sale Mysteries, but you also did an episode of Morning Show Mysteries.
I
That
did.
and that's with Holly Robinson Pete and Rick
Oh,
Fox.
I love working with her. Yeah, that was really fun. Because she didn't know me and but she trusted me. And at the end, we pulled together some beautiful looks, or at least I think so. And I know
Mhm.
she does too, because there was like 6 or 8 months later, I got a text message from her and she sent me images and she's like, wow, I loved this. Thank you again. And it's like 6 months later, if she's finding images of herself and she's sending me that, I'm like, that is a big compliment. So yes,
Yes.
yeah, I loved
Oh.
doing that one.
You also did one of the newer Hallmark movies and mysteries ones. They did a drama kind of late last summer, Big Sky River, with Kevin
I
Smith
did.
and you met and Emmanuel Vauger. How was that one for you?
That one was a really, really good learning experience. So, like I said to you, it's like when my assistant comes on, then we'll do some research, right, for things. This was one that we had to do a ton of research.
Mm,
So, because we had the equestrian riding, and then
right.
we had like, we had the two different types of horse riding, and you want to get it right.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't, but you really want to get it right. And oh my gosh, that was so expensive. It was such an expensive movie to make. Those cowboy boots for all of them, the hats, her riding boots alone for the equestrian stuff, like on the cheap end, like they were like the cheaper version. I think I still paid like $800 for those.
Whoa.
The riding pants were like 350. Like, it's the whole thing. Like one of those outfits, like the boots, the pants, the shirt, she had two or three different of the equestrian shirts, the helmet she brought herself. So she
Yeah.
actually rides.
Wow. Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, she actually rides and she did all her own stunt stuff. So that was fun. And I mean, yeah, I only have amazing things to say about her. And I really appreciated that she really helped me because I was like, I really want to get this right. And she's like, yeah, I do too. And so she's like, here's where you can buy the boots that I like. And I'm like, okay, great. I'm just gonna go buy them. Perfect.
That was easy.
because because it's like I know that she has to sit on top of a horse and has to do a
Mhm.
job. And I really want to make sure that I get that right for her. Um, so, yeah, like I think one of her equestrian looks would cost like just like probably like $1,200 once you get the gloves. Like those gloves are $120, like for the riding gloves. It's so
Whoa.
expensive.
Whoa.
And then, like I said, all the cowboy stuff. Um, we're lucky because there are a lot of like ranches and farms around here. So you can get the equestrian and you also can get like the cowboy stuff. But those boots are like $350 each on the low end. And almost every single cast member had them. The hat's the same. It's like anywhere from 120 to like upwards of 199 for one of those, like for a proper hat.
What was
So,
the
and then and then the jeans too is a whole thing. There's a whole thing with Wrangler jeans that I learned, and I did not know it. And it's like there's a purpose for how high they are, the reason for how high they are,
wow.
and also the length. They purposely have them long. That's why if you ever look at a cowboy, he's got like the slouch at the bottom of his boot, because when you're sitting on the horse, then it actually covers the entire boot. But when they're
Wow.
standing, it has the slouch, right? Because it has the extra fabric. But when he's on the horse or she's on the horse, it falls perfect. But these are things that, like, unless you know, you know, or unless you do research, otherwise, like as a designer, I'd be like, okay, how do we tailor this? And I'd tailor it perfectly. And the woman like at the shop was like, oh no, it needs to be long. And here's why. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. So that was a fun one.
Whoa. Whoa. Oh, I have so
Yeah.
many more questions, but I can't get to it. Okay. So, on top of that, you did one of my absolute favorites from last year, Just One Kiss. Oh my gosh. That opening scene alone with her dress as the professor in the lecture hall. I said, we aren't in Kansas anymore. And I loved the looks that you chose for the leading lady for that movie. What was your inspiration for your choices for that movie?
Hmm. Well, coming from the music theater background, that was a really special one for me too.
Mhm.
And um, w- here's what I do. When I find out who my leads are, I usually go, first off, what is their body type?
Mhm.
What are they
Mhm.
going to look good in? What makes sense for their character? And then I start to kind of create out of there. So it's it's really about how do I create this character with clothes that are going to really accentuate their curves or like whatever their best asset is, what am I going to do with that?
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's usually where I start for any character. And which is really what I did with her. And then I have a lot of I usually stalk their Instagram. I stalk their Instagram. I also see what they feel comfortable in and what they wear, because I think that's also important. If it can work with their character, then they're just going to feel more embodied in their clothes.
Mhm.
It doesn't always, right? But if that is an element that I can add in, then I will do that as well. Um, and with that one, the big thing was the dress in the flashback sequence.
Yeah. Oh,
Well, all the dresses actually.
so good.
And I was like, I just wanted, if you're, I wanted that dark room because I knew it was going to be this dark room. I'm like, what kind of impact is going to make? So there was that sparkly dress.
Yeah.
At the very end of the movie, there was the flashback dress. That flashback dress. Oh, it's funny. Like all the stories that I'm like, I should write these down because
Yes,
I
please.
might forget. But that flashback dress, originally the network wanted like a vintage piece.
Mm.
And I was like, I'm not going to be able to find what they want. it's just not going to look the way they think it's going to look. And I knew
Mm.
this. So I went through the process and I went to the rental houses and I rented all these vintage dresses and they were gorgeous. But I'm like, this isn't going to be what they want. And she put them on and she was a really good sport about it. And they're like, no, no, no. And so I do this thing, and anybody that knows me is like, I just go, okay, where am I going to find the dress? And I'm like, okay, God, I need to find the dress. Where is the dress? And then I usually get like this little download and it will be like, go to here, go to wherever. And so I, we were shooting that day and she was on set. And so she tried on all the vintage dresses while she was in between shots, in between setups. I ran to the store that I knew. I was like, I'm going to find it there. I ran in, I took 3 dresses. I came back and she's like, we tried on the first one. She's like, this is it. And I'm like, I know. Take the picture. We sent it to the network and they were freaking out. They're like, this is amazing. And I'm like, yeah. And I did a lot of alterations to it, like as we
Yeah.
do. The same as Christmas Waltz I did with Lacey Chabert, that whole
Yeah.
dancing thing. That whole dress thing is a whole other can of worms. But yeah. And it was just magic. And I remember sitting there watching as they were filming it. And my onset, Rachel, and I was like, because
Mm.
sometimes I don't actually get to see live my work. Like I don't always get to
Mm.
because I'm running around and doing all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was so special because all the singing was done live.
Oh!
It was all done live. So all the cast and crew that were there, we got to sit there and enjoy it, take after take, and they would sing.
Oh!
And it's just, yeah, it was not playback. Yeah. So they're singing and dancing live and we're filming.
Oh!
And it was just pure magic.
I
Everyone's
bet.
sitting there with like tears in their eyes. Like,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh. That
yeah,
that movie indeed was special. And it was
it was.
everything about it was just like you said, it was magical. Oh, so amazing. Now I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Wedding Veil series. And most recently, Wedding Veil Inspiration, I want to talk with you about.
Okay.
And this one is interesting because in the first series, you worked on Lacey's installment of The Wedding Veil and then Allison and Victor's with Legacy. But in this
Mhm.
round, you got to work with Lacey again, but you were with Autumn this time around. And because Autumn's movie last year was the one that was on location, they had someone else as the costume designer.
Kind of.
Kind of. So did you still have a little bit of a part with that? So going into inspiration, you still had some idea of how to dress Autumn for inspiration?
I actually dressed all the girls for all of the movies.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. IMDb is
So,
slipping because they only have you for Lacey's and Allison's for the first and then Lacey's and Autumn's for the second
well,
round.
what I did for Autumn's first movie is I flew to LA and I
Mhm.
shop and I fit her and got approvals from the network and I packed everything in a bag for her and I sent her with all her wardrobe. And I also did that for Lacey and for Allison for that movie.
Mm,
So when they arrived in Bulgaria, because that one shot in Bulgaria and then they moved to Italy for a couple days,
okay.
um, the costume designer there had all of their wardrobe already because they wanted to keep the continuity. So if you look
Yeah.
at it, the girls look the same. Like the continuity is the same, and the continuity is the same is because I designed it. So, however, I wasn't there to do the tweaks,
Okay.
right? Then that
Yeah.
was left to the costume designer like on site. And then the costume designer on site then dressed everybody else.
Okay.
So, but the three ladies, I shopped and fit and packed their bags and sent them with outfits. And then the costume designer then was able to pick out of the outfits that I sent where she wanted to put things. So she placed all the looks and then dressed the rest of the cast for that one. So
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna have to talk to somebody about that. No.
Yeah.
Which I actually did again for Allison's movie in Greece,
Yeah.
only this time I went to Greece. So I
Oh.
hmm. so I shop and fit Autumn and Lacey before Greece. And then I shopped Victor and Allison here in Vancouver, and I took suitcases with me to Greece. And then in Greece I fit them because it was just the timing didn't work out because it was Thanksgiving weekend in the States.
Mm.
And I was like, I can't go to LA and Arizona where Victor and Allie live. And like, I can't do this with Thanksgiving weekend. So I flew to Greece and I fit them. And then I was there and set all of their looks with the designer there. We worked together, which was really fun and beautiful. And she was amazing. Um, and yeah, but then I was there and was able to set the looks, which is why it does look a little bit different, Allie's movie, compared, like, even though it was not shot here in Vancouver. Yeah, that's why, because I was actually able to be there and set all the girls' looks. So I didn't
So,
stay the
mhm.
entire shoot for that one, but
Okay.
up until Autumn and Lacey were leaving, because
Mhm.
they did about 7 days. So I stayed for those whole first 7 days, set all the looks for the four of them, and then left. And then the designer finished everything off. And then she designed and shopped and fit the other cast members for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, my favorite out of the whole Wedding Veil series would have to be, in terms of looks, inspiration. Originally, it was the first Wedding Veil. I remember just being knocked in the face, like, where did these dresses come from? You made me want to know who the
Mm,
costume designer was, like,
mm,
for the first Wedding Veil. Loved it. But then
mm,
inspiration, I said, whoa, because that was when I saw the cohesiveness between the season that we were in that movie, which was fall. It was like we had a university backdrop, collegiate backdrop.
mm,
Their house, like the production design was giving like burnt oranges and turquoises and browns. And I
mm,
saw
mm.
Autumn's wardrobe reflect all of that. Can you talk a little bit about your inspiration, no pun intended, for for Autumn's movie and where those looks came from?
Mm. So we shoot the wedding veils in Victoria, which is the island off of Vancouver.
Okay.
Um, and Victoria is like, it has some of the older architecture in Canada, because we're such a young country. So um, it's really, really beautiful over there. And it was really great because the seasons almost lined up, which
Mm,
sorry, which like almost.
mhm.
So, which is, well, no, I guess technically it did. We were shooting that one in our end, like November-ish. So yeah. Which really helps because then you're not faking everything.
Yeah.
Um, and because I knew the locations, because we had shot there before, for the other girls' movies, we would do a lot of the college stuff in the same area. So you know the locations and then you know the colors. And so that's really, really helpful. And then also you're shopping within the season. So
Mm,
those colors are actually in the malls. They're available online, which again makes my job so much easier.
yeah.
Um, I I've done quite a few with Autumn, and Autumn is a really good friend of mine. And which makes things always easier too, because then there's this beautiful collaboration that happens and
Mhm.
trust. Sometimes if I haven't worked with an actor before, there's a little bit of trepidation because
Yeah.
like they can know my work, but then they can be like, are they going to be able to dress me?
Mhm.
And then you can make a suggestion. They're like, no, I don't think so. And then finally, like in a fitting, you'll be like, okay, can we try this now? And then they're like, oh, I never thought about this. But the
Yeah.
great thing with Autumn, Lacey, and Allie, because I've done so many movies with them, they're just like, okay, whatever you think, whatever you say, Jer, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Really? That's gonna work? Okay. All right. Oh, it did work. So when you have that trust, it makes such a difference because they walk into the fitting knowing, Jer's got this. It's gonna
Yeah.
be great. It's gonna be perfect. But with the Wedding Veil movies, there's a lot of little details that go into it. There's, like you said, the hats for Autumn, there's the scarves,
Mm-hmm.
there's the brooches, there's the jewelry for each of them. Like Tracy always had the chunky, like New York thing, which
Mm-hmm.
is so not Allison Sweeney, like in real life. And when we were doing her movie in Greece, I'd be like, oh, this is Vacation Tracy. What would Vacation Tracy wear? And so it became a joke because it's like, oh, Vacation Tracy would totally wear those earrings. Like, but this is the thing that we do, and we get to play and have fun. And Autumn in real life, like she says, this character is like the bougier version of me. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I did that on purpose. It's like, I know what you're going to feel comfortable in. So yeah, it is like the bougier version of you in real life. Like, but that's the thing, right? It's like she just is able to embody that, and she looks so good in the florals. It really brings out the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something we really wanted to do with this character. She's like, I really want to bring out the feminine in her. And I was like, all right, we're gonna dress it up then. We're gonna do all the dresses, which Lacey does, we do with Lacey as well. And
Yeah.
but it's like I said, it's the small details. It's like the colorful coats,
Mm-hmm.
it's the addition of the scarf, it's the addition of the hat, it's like the ankle boots. Like she wore a lot of ankle boots,
Mm.
and it's like this like boho chic kind of
Yes.
vibe she
Yes.
had.
Yes.
And which is, like I said, is very Autumn, like in real life. So, and she's got this tiny little frame, so it's like she can wear the florals, and it's just, yeah. I
I
love
love
all
it.
three of them. They're just magic, all three of them. And together, seeing them together and working with them, it's just so much freaking fun. Like it's so fun. Yeah, it's it's amazing. Yeah.
So, what would you give as advice for someone who maybe likes fashion and then after listening to our conversation, it sparked something in them that maybe they want to get into costume design? What kind of advice would you give to that person?
Mm. So, um, the thing, um, my job has a lot of beautiful moments, but it also has a lot of stressful moments. And like I said before, it's long days, and it's stressful for odd reasons. It's like, we're
Mm.
not saving lives here, but there's that like panic of like, we needed this yesterday. And so it is, it is wildly stressful at a lot of times because you are, you're having to produce stuff relatively quickly usually.
Mm.
So my suggestion would be actually start at the bottom. Start
Hmm.
at the bottom. Start shopping. Start looking at fabrics. Start understanding how fabrics are going to lay on the body. Understand what looks good on different body types. And then start to play with that. Play with accessories. Um, and once you're in the malls and you're looking at stuff, and I have a really hard time with online shopping unless I know the brands, because when I get into the mall, I'm like, what does this feel like? How
Mm.
is this sleeve going to hang? Right? There's so many factors you have to think about. Like if you have a puffy sleeve, if you have a puffy sleeve on someone that weighs like 100 pounds, it's going to look super cute, right? If you have a puffy sleeve on someone that, because or it could completely overwhelm them, right,
Mm.
on camera,
Hmm.
because all you see is the puffy sleeve. But these are the things you have to think about, because, and the things that you don't have to think about in real life. In real life, if you want to wear a puffy sleeve, girl, like get it.
Right.
But on camera, that puffy sleeve, you could just be looking at the puffy sleeve.
Right.
Like It's stuff like that that you have to start to train the brain, and
Mm,
being out and shopping and looking at textiles and, um, like I said, seeing how the clothes fit and seeing how you can style people for their body type, that is where you have to start. Because if you get that, and if you're good at that, then you can move into designing. And also you have to be highly organized, or you have to have an assistant that's highly organized. Like,
Yeah.
there's my breakdown of a script takes me a day at least, if not 2, and then they're constantly changing the script. So
Mm,
you're constantly going back, like, did they add in a, like, do they have to have a coat now with a pocket all of a sudden because they're gonna pull a gun out of there? Like, there's all
mm,
these things, or if you're doing breakdown of something, and by breakdown I mean, like, if someone gets shot in a like in a scene, you're going to have multiples of the same thing, because
mm,
we're not sure how you're going to shoot it. So if they're getting shot wearing a white dress shirt, you better make sure you can replicate that white dress shirt like at least four to five times, because you're going to have the progression of the blood and the gun wound, right?
mhm,
And all the stages, because we don't shoot everything in sequence always.
mm,
So, there's all those things. It's like, I'm going to have a stunt double for Kevin when he's riding. So I need to make sure that I can get that jean that I put him in in another size for his stunt, and that shirt that I put him in another size. There's Actually, it's funny I said that, because that was one of the situations where I put him in this Rails. The brand was Rails. It was like a blue plaid Rails shirt, and um it was kind of expensive actually, but I was like, oh, I can definitely get a second of that. I went to get a second of it once I got the stunt double size. I couldn't get a second. So now I'm frantically ordering online from the States to get a second, because we'd already seen the shirt. And, like, it's all those things that you have to put into consideration before you even pick a look for something. So
yeah,
these are little details that people don't realize. But coming back, what are the fabrics? How do things fit people? Then how do you style people for their body types? Those are the basics. And if you can
mhm.
get that and you're good at that, then you can move your way up.
Wow.
Because you can always get people to support the areas in which you're not as good in,
Wow. I wish
you
we
know.
had 3 hours so we could just do a master class of this. This was so helpful and eye-opening, Jaralin. Thank you so much for sharing and for your time. For people who want to follow
So,
you and along your costume design journey, where can they get in
mm,
touch with you on social media and the World Wide Web?
thank you for asking that. So my team has a page. It's wardrobe girls underscore. At wardrobe girls underscore, and you can follow us there. And we post also, like, for a lot of the wedding veils, we did post pictures of, and places of where you can find some of these dresses. And we try to do that as much as we can. De- Sometimes it's harder, because if we shoot it in September but then it's not being aired until August, then the clothes are
Mm,
already gone.
mhm.
But yeah, so follow us there, and we have a lot of fun videos. My assistant and on-set Rachel, she does a majority of the posting for our page for the team. But yeah, there's a lot of fun behind the scenes stuff, and yeah, it's good. So please follow us there.
Yes. Well, thank you so much again, Jaralyn. And for the viewers and listeners, all of the links that Jaralyn mentioned, they will be in the show notes and in the YouTube description box. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.